Thank you, Sandeep. It's my proud privilege to be here among such a wonderful audience. I believe we have just started off. We are just gathering ourselves and expecting a lot of things today. Am I right, guys? Yes. Yeah. And let me share with you, whatever we are going to see today is not rocket science. It's all something that we have known for all our years in our profession, in our career, even in our personal lives. But the way it will occur to you today, it will make a difference in the way you will handle your business, your career, your personal lives as well. And that's my promise to you. So looking forward to it? Yeah. So the big debate, it's always about things which are important, things which make a lot of impact in our lives, in our professional lives. And sales and marketing has been ruling the roost for quite some time. Today, we are talking about sales and marketing. How does it compare and how does it really deliver value against a thing called customer service, which has been a traditional department in each one of our organizations, and how does customer service takes precedence, perhaps, in many ways today. And this is what we are going to talk about. So I have pleasure in inviting Rajneesh Kapoor. The people on the panel include Rajneesh Kapoor. He is the Chief Innovation Officer at Make My Trip. Good morning, Rajneesh. And as Chief Innovation Officer, he is responsible for automation, user interface, content, quality assurance. With over 20 years of professional experience, he has been making some waves across. He has worked with Kale Consultants. He has been in Cognosys. And his CV just goes on and on. So really welcome, Rajneesh. Please have a seat.
Thank you.
And we are really looking forward to having some nice, inspirational thoughts from you, which make a difference today. Next on board, we have Mr. Vishweshwar Singh. Vishweshwar Raj Singh. Yes. And he's the man who is behind Oberoi's success. Yeah.
If you say so.
It really feels nice, Vishy. We call him Vishy over here. And he's one of, incidentally, the youngest general managers in the industry. He became a GM at Oberoi's at the age of 30. And he has also been working for for Oberoi Amar Vilas Agra, which is just 600 meters from the Taj Mahal, the famous Taj Mahal. He has won a lot of awards over there. Incidentally, he is also the man who has been working for some awards for the Bandra Kurla Oberoi. Yeah? Wonderful. Thank you so much, Vishy, that you are here. Last but not the least is a man who speaks, dreams, and walks customer service. Kaizad Hiramanek. Can I have you here? He is the man from ICICI Prudential, and he has experiences across various different sectors in the industry, starting with hospitality. He has been also a part of the Indian telecom market, having worked across brands which really impact our lives today. And that's who he is right now, handling a 3 billion disbursal unit at ICICI Prudential's Shared Services Center. So welcome each one of you, my personal welcome and to each one of you. We will start immediately after that. Yeah? Thank you so much. So I'll come over there and then we will talk further on. Yeah. So, thank you. Thank you so much. So I hope the mic, this one is working now, right? Perfect. Thank you. So, okay. Well, first of all, again, good morning to all of you. Good morning to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. We are just starting the big debate, sales and marketing versus customer service. And it's not always easy to, I understand, demarcate, or there are so many fine lines that are there between marketing and sales and customer service. But let me ask you a very fundamental question, and my question is very simply, who do you really define as today's customer? Yes,
okay. Before we begin, I'd actually like to tell you a little story about, setting context to this entire debate.
Sure.
So, And since we have time, we have a fairly extended session, plus you guys are going to be asking questions as well. So I thought it's important that we set context. So, actually there's a very well-qualified person in Mumbai whose parents want him to get married, and, they want him to find the right type of bride. So they obviously, the parents talk around the community, they find a matchmaker, they put his profile on, all these matrimonial sites, and, they spread the word. And finally they arrive at a host of prospective brides, who then kind of, they narrow down to one, meet the parents of the bride, the prospective bride. They actually introduce the prospective groom to the prospective bride. They chat. He talks about all his worldly wise experiences and his exposure to various aspects of life. And finally, they arrive at a decision to get married. And when they get married, it's something that people talk about for a long time, in the community. That wow, this was a marriage made in heaven. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, a month later, the bride files for divorce. So people actually ask, hey, I mean, you got married to the perfect man, into the perfect family, and yet you walk out. Why is that so? So she says, the product that I bought was really good. It had the right specifications, but there was a problem in servicing. So if I were to really set context, this is the quandary that affects every customer today. So if you really look at the entire, the dramatis personae, so as to speak, in this entire story, the parents were actually the salespeople, okay? The matchmaker and the matrimonial site were the marketing tools and the distribution channels. The groom was the product, the bride was the prospect, and you know what happened, it's where servicing failed, So despite having a beautiful product and perfect marketing and salespeople in the process, you still had a, broken relationship. So that, to the audience, should actually set a bell ringing that today's customer, if you really look at it, today's organizations per se, they value things which actually depreciate over a period of time. For example, they value office, they value infrastructure. Infrastructure depreciates, but they call them assets. They value product, but product depreciates over a life cycle because the customer outgrows it. So that too is an asset. The inventory of the product is an asset, but it depreciates. The employee, to be honest with you, as employees age in the system, they become more been there, done that. So they become a lot more flippant in the way of dealing with customers. So finally, the only guy who appreciates in the entire relationship is the customer, because he's evolving, he's using your product, he's looking at newer and newer ways of doing things with your product. So therefore, the context I would like to set is that we need to treat our customers as assets, okay, through a practice called customer asset management. And that is actually the broad context with which I come to the table. So if you were to really look at it, what affects the customer today? The customer is affected by your brand, because obviously you've got very highly paid guys, wearing cufflinks and suits, sitting in an ivory tower and doing market research and focus group discussions and saying, hey, I know the customer. And this is what the customer says. You've got your product, so you've got a guy who's sitting in another ivory tower and saying, hey, you've got, everybody believes he's Steve Jobs and he can make the customer do what he wants. So he develops a product which may or may have absolutely no relevance to the customer. You've got your older users who are actually talking about you in the marketplace, but you don't seem to know what they're actually expecting from you. And finally, you've got market conditions themselves. So if I were to relate it to, let's say, an industry like insurance, what is insurance actually? Insurance is a protection against a risk which may or may not happen. So it's highly intangible. Okay. The good part is I've been a sales and marketing guy with the travel industry, with the hotels. I've been a CRM guy and a marketing guy with telecom. And finally, I've moved to hardcore operations and service. The quandary affecting the three very clearly is that if you were to look at an organization as a kingdom, okay, the sales guys are the emperors, especially in financial services. And they send their emissaries far and wide. Those emissaries are the marketing guys who are sitting in high places in the provinces of the country and saying, hey, this works, this works. And who is the service guy? The The service guy is actually the local admin guy who's handling, potholed roads and garbage and sewage disposal. Okay, so this is a clear demarcation of the three portfolios in today's Indian context, which is not entirely true. Think about it. People say sales drives top line, sales drives inventory, sales drives pricing, marketing drives product innovation, marketing drives product development. What does service do? Service is unfortunately a cost that you incur for a poorly designed product or poor sales practices. Is that necessarily true? What does service do? They measure some irrelevant metrics of AHT and service levels, which have no relevance to the business. What does service do? They manage queries and resolve complaints. These are jobs that are menial in nature, but they don't realize the value. So, coming back to context setting, the customer is an asset. Service is the defining moment, as Sandeep very rightly put it. It's the moment of truth where the brand experience and the brand promise actually comes alive. Do we really value it? So with that context setting, I'd like to hand it over to Rajneesh, who will actually give us more context in terms of a more clued-in customer. From my perspective, insurance is a very low-touch, low-involvement product. So how do you service a customer there? From a travel perspective, the customer is a lot more clued in. So let's hear from Rajneesh.
So let me just add, I think there is another dimension to this, another quandary, let's put it this, that, when we look at sales, marketing, and service, this is what we are looking at when we are sitting in our organizations. Whereas from a customer's viewpoint, and actually the customers, all of us are customers at the end of the day, the customer has really evolved. I think the Indian customer is coming of age or has already come of age, at least in terms of expectations. That's what we experience. From that customer, the experience is actually end to end. They don't care about sales, marketing, or this thing. For them, it's an experience.
Sure.
Okay, and I think from an organization point of view, these walls and silos have to be broken down. Not about top line, not about the service or the menial thing. At the end of it, it's all about, as you rightly said, customer asset management. And if all of these areas do not work together, and the loop back is not closed, here you're going to be spending dollars and dollars on marketing and sales, and on the other side, you'll have a leaky bucket all the time, and you're not going to be a profitable organization.
Sure.
So in the end, it's going to be it has to be an end-to-end experience, both from an organization as well as customer viewpoint. Now, coming back to our business, which is very, very tangible. At the end of the day, as a travel intermediary, we are not running our own hotels, we are not running our own planes, and therefore the service element, it does become important. I mean, if you want to change your flights, you want to cancel your flights, you will need high touch. And what we're trying to do, at least in our business, is because we do sell a lot of our products and services online. What we're trying to do really is reduce the touch that is required. If a customer can come and book online, surely he or she should be able to come and service oneself online. So thrust really is actually on providing as much self-service as possible to the customer and reduce the human touch. It can't be eliminated at the end of the day. It just cannot be eliminated. There are complex processes, and we do come across where things are actually beyond our control. An airline, a flight will get cancelled, and we have to deal with it. And I think the most important thing is that when that happens, how do you deal with that situation? So for us, service is a very, very critical piece. Sales is important, but I think service actually, I would say, towers above the sales piece, because sales is actually happening more in an electronic way, really. And the whole thrust of the organization is on the service piece, really. This is, yeah.
So let's ask Vishy. Vishy, the kind of domain that you belong to, it's from a hospitality domain, and it's more to do with personal contact of the customer, the way you treat your customers. So how does customer service, you see evolving over the years, like compared to when you started off and compared to how it is now?
Well, it's a very interesting question, the way you've put it, because it has evolved hugely. Social media plays a big role, and I think social media is a combination of marketing and sales, not just one or the other. In fact, to give you a little story about social media and the power of social media, I work for a hotel which is just 3 years old, and I think within the first 6 months of our opening, there was a young lady from Singapore, who visited our hotel not as a guest, not as a resident guest, but as a guest for our restaurants. And she tweeted about her walk into the hotel, where she passed the dogs, the sniffer dogs who were there. And she tweeted that, there's this hotel in BKC which treats its dogs really badly because they're out there in the sun and there's the water bowl which is there is upturned upside down, so there's no water for the dog to drink. So we naturally reacted quite strongly internally to this tweet because we monitor all our tweets. And I'm quite savvy on Twitter and Facebook and all of that. So we immediately looked into the matter and we realized that when looking at the dog bowl when you pass by, and the dog bowls are shaped like this, you could mistake it for being upside down, whereas it's not. And it was actually, that's the way it's normally placed. So what I did was we took a photograph of the dog bowl with the dog next to it, filled with water, and we tweeted back to her saying, you're mistaken, the dog bowl is placed like that, and it's full of water, and here's a photograph to prove it. So she was so impressed by this reaction and by the fact that we got back to her within a few hours of her tweeting. Wonderful. She forwarded that tweet and retweeted that to all her employees in the organization. And at that time, that organization was hardly giving us any room business. In fact, it still is located very close to two of our competitors. And geographically in Mumbai, we all know geography plays a big role where you are and where your office is, plays a big role in deciding where you stay. But it so happens that that company now is now top 20 producers, even though their office remains close to our competitors. Now, I may be stretching it a bit to say that one thing led to this, but I can definitely say within the first few months after that incident where she wrote back to me and she was gushing about response which she never received before from any organization, and it was just a question of a photograph and 160 characters in Twitter, which led to this overwhelmingly positive response. So I think the way it's evolving is that the turnaround time between somebody experiencing a service and if it goes well, it's fantastic. If it doesn't go well, how you respond to it, that time has reduced tremendously. And I think it was one of the marketing gurus called Seth Godin who said that, most of your competitors, and I say this to the audience in general, most of our competitors spend a lot of time trying to create that perfect situation where everything goes right. And waiting for that perfect day, that perfect moment of truth, everything is perfect on that particular interaction. But wouldn't we all be better served by making sure that when things are not perfect and investing our time in making sure that when things are not perfect, we get it right after that? So that's really the critical competitive advantage that I think our hotel offers and our company offers as a whole, is that when things don't go right, and they don't go right often, unfortunately it's a fact of life when you're dealing with human beings. You can't have automatons and everything done precisely in 1.17 minutes every time. It is a fact of life that how you react to it, how you respond to it, plays a big role. And that is something which I think technology can't help you do in terms of, it actually only can help you get there. But the fact that there's a human intervention at the back, there's a human being who assesses the situation, looks at the dog bowl, says could have been mistaken, let me try tweeting back. Yes, the technology used is Twitter, but I think it really is the human being and the connect with the human being which makes a huge difference.
Wonderful. I really get from what you say is that execution, the response time, using technology, and the most important part, the human element, keeping that as an essence makes a lot of difference, and which was possibly not there a couple of, or maybe about 2 decades back. It has really started to be included as a part of customer service.
And there's a danger of using technology too much. So
Correct.
While I'm a huge tech gadget freak, and there's some of my friends and colleagues sitting in the audience who would vouch for that, I really do think there's overkill. So you have to especially keep in mind what Sandeep said in the Indian context, and the amazing story which he told us about his father-in-law's servant. The Indian context still needs that human touch. And even foreigners, when they visit India, and about 60% of our clients are foreigners, they value that above everything else compared to where they go in Europe or America or wherever else.
True.
They really value the fact that we treat them as human beings. And the second point I want to make before you move on to the others once more is I'm a firm believer in the service profit chain. And just for everybody's information, the service profit chain, I'm sure most of you know it, but just to synopsize, it's you treat your employees well, you'll make sure that they're satisfied, you retain them, they create value for your customers because they're satisfied and they're happy. When they deliver that value, the customer gets satisfied, he becomes a loyal customer, and loyal customers repeat business, profitability, long-term growth. So that's, in a nutshell, that's the service profit chain. I'm a firm believer in that. So where the focus really needs to be is how are you marketing, selling, and servicing your people. And marketing and selling to your people might sound contradictory. How do you market to your employees? How do you sell to your employees. But for example, when you go for recruitment, when people come to be hired by you, where do they wait? How long do they wait? Who meets them? How is that person groomed? What kind of presentation do you make? How many spelling errors are in that presentation? What kind of music do you use? How do you give them an impression of what they're going to, what organization they're going to join? So that's dangling a carrot, that's selling, and if the reality doesn't match what you're dangling, unfortunately, it's not going to cut it. So you have to carry it through all the way. It's not just, hey, a great presentation when you're hiring somebody, but when he joins the organization, it's a completely different world. The honeymoon is over. You have to be able to deliver on that promise as well. So it starts, the sales and marketing and servicing starts right from the employee point of view, not really from the customer point of view. Because the employee then goes and delivers those promises to the customer. And that's what I believe in.
I really appreciate the kind of dimension that you have added now is customer service is not just about the end customer, and it starts with the employee. Because employee is also your first internal customer.
Absolutely.
So if your employee is happy, he is going to make your customers happy. And I was there at one of the famous pizza outlets one of these days. Just last week, I was stuck in the traffic and I was feeling very hungry. I got down and it happened, that pizza outlet happened to be just next door. And one thing that they said, very upfront on their, POS, the point of sale material is, the only thing that matters to us is happiness. And happiness is, the secret behind happiness is just happiness. If we can make our employees happy, they will make our customers happy. And that's the secret, the essence of the customer service in today's context. So how do you see that in the insurance domain? Because that's something which is, we always read those ads and we find, there is a small line that says, insurance is a matter of solicitation. And which very rarely people actually go back to the dictionary and find what is solicitation.
Yeah. See, actually, this is an interesting point to make, Neeraj, because let's go back to something more fundamental and understand what does the customer really expect from an intangible. Okay, protection by nature is an intangible. For example, a customer who travels on Make My Trip expects the fact that his flights are booked according to his schedule, his visas are delivered to him on time, he gets his travel vouchers. When he lands at an international airport, and I'm saying this because I've actually done my last 3 international travel with Make My Trip, so full marks there. So when he lands at the airport, there is a representative to meet him. Similarly, at a hotel, his booking is confirmed. He has something on paper. Especially for an Indian customer, there's still trust deficit in terms of, is my service or is my product really guaranteed? So he still likes that Pauti type of system, where I need to see something on paper before I go there. Okay. He wants to be greeted. He wants to be reassured that there is a room waiting for him. He wants to be smiled at. Okay. So for all I know, the dog was smiling in the photo as well when you took it next to the bowl. That's a perfectly groomed hotel dog.
No, the perfectly groomed hotel dog is what you see in the paper today on page 3.
Yeah, he's got a raincoat as well.
That's at our hotel as well. I'll have you know. So a little bit pitch for my hotel there also.
There you go. So like I was saying, so what does a customer really expect from an intangible? Okay. Number 1, the customer really looks for brand association, which means what are people saying in the market about this brand? Is it trustworthy? Is it an entity that I can trust my life with? Quite honestly, we're an insurance company, so you have to trust your life with us. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, what are the products that it is designing continuously to keep up with my evolution in my life cycle? Which means, are they still selling just traditional term cover policies, or have they also evolved into helping me plan financially? Are they helping me do things with my circle of influence, which plays a very large part in today's purchasing decision? So one of our strategies very clearly is influencing the circle of influence. Okay. Number 3, how is this brand allowing me to transact with them? Okay. Are they forcing me to stand in a call center line and talk to an agent who is so far removed from reality that I don't want to speak to them? Or is it allowing me to do things myself? Is it allowing me access at a local branch or a local partner branch? Is it allowing me to transact over SMS, over my smartphone? Okay, especially true for an urban and a semi-urban type of audience. Rural insurance in this country is very poorly penetrated, but we'll get there. But you can see the aspirational value that telecom has created in terms of belonging for the Indian population is tremendous. So are we really using that power of connectivity in those areas? So that's what a customer expects. Finally, a customer expects at his core access to you when he's in trouble and resolution. At that point in time, if you've suffered a tragedy, you don't want to be spending half an hour trying to verify yourself, saying, hey, I am the person who's in trouble, please help me. If you can show empathy, and I think Vishy's point is very, very valid there. If you can show empathy, so I remember when I was much younger, I actually attended a symposium where we had a very famous customer activist come on stage and say, and he was a doctor, so he says, what a patient needs is not allopathy or homeopathy. What he needs is a doctor's sympathy. Okay, so very clearly, if you are able to empathize with that person at that point in time, connect with the tragedy or the situation that they are in, and deliver a experience or a moment of truth which far exceeds their expectation, that is what will drive three things very clearly. It will drive retention. Okay, so one of the things that most people complain about, and I'm sure you all have insurance policies, if you all don't, please meet me outside. We can talk about it. Okay, so that's my sales pitch to you.
You also bought forms today, I believe.
No, we have a completely online assisted model, so you don't really need paper anymore. Okay, we are environmentally friendly. Yeah. So like I said, at that point in time, if you can help the customer, and at that point of time, if you can provide instant redemption, you will affect retention with the brand. You will definitely affect repurchase. And at the ultimate level, the third R and the most important R, where you must move your customer category, is referral. You must create evangelists. And this is one of the things that I look for very, very strongly when we are looking at a customer base. We don't look at customers or policy holders purely as numbers who are paying premiums. One of the things that people complain about is, hey, you only seem to call me when you want me to pay my premium. You have absolutely no connect with me otherwise. That's one of the things that we are trying to break through a concept called virtual account management. Obviously, because we're low touch, we don't really want to get into the customer's life too much. Because insurance comes with its own taboos at the end of the day. People don't really want to associate too much with the product category in their day-to-day lives. But at the same time, we still need to talk to the customer about, hey, you invested correctly. B, you need to keep investing to keep your commitment. So we emphasize a lot on the word commitment. So we transfer the ownership back to the customer, thereby bringing in brand saliency. And C, we are there with you if anything happens to you. I think if these three things are very, very perfectly delivered at that point in time, I think you won half your battle in terms of service and long-term relationship.
I think the key is the...
Sorry, yeah, Rajneesh, please add to what
I think the key is really the exceeding the expectations. I think that brings me to another point, which is, how do you set that culture in the organization? I think that's a big piece. I think we should talk about it. Sure. It's not an easy one because, from the old days of, sales and marketing, the emperors, and look, let me sell and then let me forget about it. I think there has to be a shift, and there is a shift that is happening, I think, across. We all realize it, but it has to be accelerated, I guess. So this whole culture shift of, as I call it, end-to-end experience, and how it actually percolates down to the surface teams, and how you actually connect, and especially in our business, where and true here as well, is when some of our service elements are actually outsourced to a third party, because we are not, as Make My Trip, we are not in the business really of let's put it like this, infrastructure and people and all that. So we leave it to the experts. Of course, we do have our mechanisms and matrices and rest of the things in place to be able to handle that, which is really unlike Oberoi, which is very different, top of the pyramid kind of the experience that is promised to the customer. So I think the whole thing really is about how does this culture of the organization, which completely believes in customer service and customer centricity, from product lines to sales, permeate this so-called the wall and then goes across to the frontline people. And that's a big one that we need to really constantly keep working on, especially also in a case where in the outsource industry the attrition is a big problem. Yeah. There is an attrition, we all know that, and there is youngsters that will come in, and then constantly you have to keep talking about the culture, and then reward them on customer centricity, on helping the customers out at the right time. So there's a big push on that really.
Great, Rajneesh. So fundamentally, the way it is coming across is that customer service is not just the responsibility of the customer service department, but everybody in the organization is a customer service officer. And if we can create that culture, and how we create that culture, we will be discussing over the next 2 days, over these 2 days. But fundamentally, we need to get that customer service is the single point DNA that we need to imbibe in every department, in every human being that works for us, every professional, every person, right from the top to the bottom. And if that culture comes in across as the second nature, then the organization, the product, the service, whatever that we are offering, has a great future. And that's very, very interesting. Thanks, Rajneesh, for sharing that.
So just to add, Neeraj, I think, and maybe I can just kind of take another 30 seconds. And you rightly said, at Make My Trip, every department and every individual has a significant amount of KRAs, which is related to the NPS that we actually measure. Yeah. Unless that actually happens, so no, sales would typically be measured on the revenue numbers and all that. But here's a 25%, which is customer service related. So if there's something wrong with the product, if there's something wrong with the marketing, if there's wrong expectation setting, it all comes back. It all comes back because we measure all of this, and then this is the thread. The NPS is the thread. Is the moment of truth where we actually tie everybody together.
So what you're saying is that customer service just does not remain intangible anymore. It is a very measurable thing, yes. And every employee in the organization is accountable for
Absolutely.
it, and it can be measured.
Absolutely.
And basis that, their promotions and their evaluations are done. Absolutely. That's really wonderful.
Absolutely.
What is your experience in your domain of hospitality? Does the service also becomes measurable, like to the T, in matters which really other organizations might not be or might be looking forward for?
Well, I think what you can measure is actually the response to the service or how it made a person feel. And that is very, very subjective. So as long as we understand that the responses will be subjective, because the delivery is subjective as well. And there's a very real danger in today's world of just making customer service a process, both not just from the automation point of view, but also from a training point of view of human beings. You really, I don't think you can look at it as, this is a process, you do this and you will have happy customers. If you try and educate your team to just do that and kind of train them like lemmings to jump off the cliff and behave in a certain manner, you will fail.
Absolutely.
It has to be done one guest at a time, one employee at a time, and it has to be personalized and customized. So I think it's a very scary thought to look at the world of tomorrow and say that there'll be one customer service solution for everybody, whether you're from X background or Y background, which is probably the way some companies have already chosen to go, and they sell it to themselves internally as the level playing field, and everybody, whether you're from this background, that background, or this country or that origin, you will still get the same delivery. Fantastic, democratic, secular thought. But honestly, it kind of negates the thought of where you're coming from and what your expectations are based on that, where your upbringing, your social background, your financial background. And in hotels, that's more true than anywhere else. I think any hotelier in the room will tell you that it's much more challenging to exceed the expectations of an Indian customer than it is of a foreign customer.
True.
They may be a minority of our population coming in through our doors, but they account for the majority of our issues, with all due respect to Indian consumers. It is a challenge because the expectations are that much higher. And on the other side of the spectrum is if you do one size fits all with regard to your service model, you could have the danger of over-servicing foreign clients, and they feel very infringed on. Their privacy gets infringed by us over-servicing them. So you have to be able to balance that out.
Yeah.
The over-servicing, the personalization. Maybe an Indian guest walking in to have a meal in your restaurant expects his plate to be whisked away and somebody to hover and refill his glass, but a foreign guest gets very uncomfortable with that, perhaps. So you have to be sensitive to that and train your people to be picking up the body language, picking up the little signs which give you that indication so that you can tweak it, which you can't do over a phone. You can't do over one-way communication in a magazine ad or on the internet. You can only do it when there's a conversation, whether that conversation is on the phone, face-to-face, or through Skype, or through some sort of other technology available to us, or preferably face-to-face, physically in the same room, in the same space.
Correct. Actually, one great advantage the product that you are involved with is that the consumer and the customer is actually interacting with you. And you have that leverage of noting his body language, noting the nuances, noting what is he saying, what is he not saying. And he means she as well. The customer is, he could be anyone. And that's really a great advantage which you are, I see that your domain is really capitalizing on that and using it to the benefit. But tell me, customer service also comes into picture when you are actually selling a product on internet. When you are selling a product through an insurance agent, through all those pothole roads. So how do you really measure the customer service or customer satisfaction in that context? Kaiser, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, it's interesting. See, let me put it this way. In terms of context, what really drives customer behavior in the way that you want the customer to, interact or react to your product or your service offering? I think very importantly, the fact that you've got constantly evolving product offerings. The problem with most insurance selling is it follows the Bofors philosophy of shoot and scoot. So, so unfortunately, that needs to change. I mean, you must realize that, and it's human psyche, honestly speaking, that people work on commissions, and commissions are something that are fairly looked down upon. Okay, in this country, I mean, they say ye to dalal hai for all practical purposes. So, to that extent, how do we ensure that the product offerings are constantly communicated back to the customer? Number two, what is the relevance of my interventions in his life cycle? Am I only calling him to pick up his premium? Am I only calling him at the point of time when he suffered something bad? Okay, extremely important in terms of when I talk to him. And finally, what is my employee commitment? And our employees, to be honest with you, how many people have really in this room have actually read their insurance policy document or walked into an insurance branch office? We'll talk about that, I mean, when we do the Q&As. But what is my employee commitment, or what is my technical commitment to resolving issues or meeting service guarantees? If we actually look at these three specific things in terms of the delivery of service. So for example, the internet. I'm very happy to say that maybe 30 to 40% of our value today gets logged in through an online channel, whether proactively by the customer or through an assisted, through a tablet sale, where the product is explained, etc. But how much has the customer really understood? Because there are layers within layers. Okay? That is where your actual relevance of what you're going to talk to him after he's come on board. And onboarding is one thing that Indians by nature are poor at. Okay, so I really subscribe to Vishy's point that how are we really onboarding an employee? Similarly, that directly reflects in how we onboard the customer. Are we really transparent about what has been sold to him?
Thanks to IRDA, they have done a lot of work to ensure that last mile.
Well, that happened even before IRDA, but the point is we didn't really necessarily need the regulator to push us in that direction. But the point very clearly is that this is a learning. Okay, all said and done, if you really think about it, a customer pays you 3,000 rupees or pays you 25,000 rupees and gets coverage for 2 crores. So carrying the risk is a huge one. Okay, so how am I able to onboard him, tell him, hey, you made the right decision, keep going in that direction. So if you really realize, today, no insurance company in the country actually talks about a bad thing happening to you. They talk about jeete raho, they talk about aapke jeene ka license, they talk about life, they talk about happiness, they talk about fulfillment, they talk about commitment. That is where the service promise really brings the entire value of the proposition to life, when the person interacts with you at a moment of truth.
Kaizad, over here, I want to ask you a very fundamental point.
Sure.
After the product is sold in your domain, what are the other touch points till the time the customer actually needs that insurance policy back? So either the policy is matured or something uneventful happened and the policy needs to be paid back. So what are the other touch points that you as a customer service person takes care of, and as an organization you are ensuring that the customer delight or customer happiness is ensured?
See, the touch points really are, number one, a very large proportion of our product base is actually financial instruments. They are market linked, they're called ULIPs, which I'm sure you all have been sold as well. There's a lot of bad press about them as well. Don't believe them entirely. That's my sales pitch again. But the point is that what does the customer really want to know in this country? The customer wants to know that he's getting something called ROI, which means mera paisa vasool hua ke nahi. Okay. The fact of the matter is when you invest in market-linked instruments, that is the reason why it's written insurance is a subject matter of solicitation. Eventually, you are entering a category with your eyes open. If you aren't, especially considering the ticket sizes that you're paying, you should. So that is one of the very important things that we actually talk about, especially on our onboarding, where we actually educate the customer in terms of what he's bought. We also have something called a free look policy where we tell the customer, hey, if you're not happy or you're not convinced with what you bought, you have the right to exit us. Okay, which is extremely customer centric. So number one, telling the customer what he's bought, what are the features. Number two, telling him at regular intervals through something called virtual account management, which we practice at regular intervals, saying, hey, your funds aren't performing that well, but don't worry about it. This is where rupee cost averaging takes over. So we spend those extra, so we don't measure AHT, for example. It's an irrelevant metric. We actually like our agents to talk more to the customer. Okay? Especially, for example, if a customer calls us, what would he call us for generally? What is my fund value? How can I surrender my policy? Which is a terrible thing to happen. Okay? Because the customer actually loses money when he forecloses in advance. Okay? Number three, please change my contact details. These are very, very routine transactional events. A lot of those, the customer doesn't necessarily want to stand in a line or wait in a queue at a branch. He can service himself. So we actually 30 to 40% of our transactions get closed at the IVR, leaving our agents to actually speak more to the people who actually want to connect to us.
In fact, I would like to subscribe to what you said. In fact, I have been a holder of one of your, or couple of policies, and once I called up the call center, and the wonderful reply that I got was, sir, can you tell me your account number? I said, I'm sorry, I can only tell you my name and my date of birth.
Date of birth, yeah.
And they said, no problem, sir, you'll find it out. And they started to tell me number by number, how many policies I have. And they say, okay, sir, there are 4 policies and 3 of them are in perfect order and one of them you need to pay the premium. And everything was documented. They just, again, asked me the PAN number. And they just verified it and then say, okay, this is the database. So everything, that I saw in the consumer service and the customer service domain, you are using technology brilliantly to ensure the customer is getting an answer for whatever that he needs. So that customer resolution is paramount. Yeah. And it's wonderful to see that part of it.
See, especially even at the point of claim, for example. A lot of times, you have an uneducated housewife coming and saying that, hey, I found this document in my husband's drawer, can you help me? At that point in time, we don't necessarily, start asking her, give me your address proof and give me your PAN, which is, honestly speaking, most housewives don't have it in this country. So then how do you actually verify that that person is actually the person, say, go home, we'll take care of it, and actually disbursing the claim, going to the house, expressing empathy, talking about investment options, which will sustain the lifespan of that dependent. Those are the things that you need to practice, because what that does is, it disallows money from going away, because then that person may or may not, it may fall into unscrupulous hands, and at the same time, it also allows sustainability. So one of the things that customer service needs to look at very seriously is sustainability of relationships.
So how do you see Rajneesh in the context that you are operating? And there are, if I believe and if I'm right, and please correct me, Make My Trip as an organization gets chunk of its revenues from online operations.
That's right.
And you do have offline outlets, but they are in very select cities and they are just very few to really quote. So 95% of your business and if majority of it is happening online, how does customer service really become different as compared to any other domain?
Okay, so you're absolutely right. I think, and the thrust really is to actually move as much online as possible and make it touchless. So let me change the terminology here, which is customer service is what you're using. So the terminology that we actually internally use is customer experience.
Wonderful.
Okay, and it actually starts online. It actually starts even before that, which is brand association and the brand promise and what the brand really stands for. From then on, when the customer actually comes online, the experience actually starts. So there is a lot of, I guess, trust again and effort that is actually put into the online experience. How quickly can you find what you're looking for? How quickly can you make your decisions? And how quickly can you make your payment in a very seamless manner and basically complete your transaction? So swiftly, quickly, and without any friction, you're able to transact. Once that transaction actually happens, and of course we are measuring all of this. What is really happening on the funnel? What are people experiencing? And they have an opportunity to leave a feedback, which is actually read. Verbatims are read, and then the product is actually and for us, product really is the experience. It is not the airline ticket. It is not the hotel room. It is the online experience of buying and transacting. From then on, of course, the touch points really are if you bought an airline ticket, you'll want to do what? You'll probably want to cancel it. You'll probably want to change your date, and maybe the airline has changed its schedule, and therefore you want to let the customer know about it and make necessary adjustments. And again, to the point here, we're trying to move as much of this online as possible because, you may want to call up, but I think our customer base, because they're online, they will want to transact, and complete the service element also online. So about 75, let's say, take a typical use case of, cancellation. For us, about 75 to 80% of the cancellations actually happen online. And it has moved rapidly in the last, I guess, a year and a half, from about, let's say, 40% to about almost 75, 80%. So the customer is evolving. They also want to transact online. They don't want to, call a call center. And actually works for the customer, and it's a win-win really for all of us.
Yeah, and it's measurable.
It's measurable, and you are constantly, like I said, tweaking it, and you're evaluating customer feedback and making life simpler for the customers. So in that context, there are simpler products like airline tickets, which are easily. Now let's move to a more complex product like a holiday. And today, a lot of our customers, based on the feedback and the service that we actually do and the interaction that we do, they do come online. They look at what we have to offer in terms of the packages and options that they have. But yes, they will want to now talk to somebody because it's complicated. It's a high-ticket item, high-touch item. For an overseas, you'll want to have visas, and you'll have 100 questions about what clothes should I take, and what the activities will be, and all that stuff. So for that, the experience really begins to now shift into people, high-touch kind of a thing, right? For us, therefore, we are able to we have set up our retail shops. We have a call center where people can call in, and then there is at least in this space, there is a one-to-one connect. It is not necessarily that when the customer calls up again, you will be directed to another agent and another agent. That's typically what happens in a call center. But in the holidays business, it is really one-to-one connect, because somebody has to understand that context. Somebody has to understand that there's a history to what you've been telling your needs, and those needs are evolving based on what we are offering. So the customer will require one option, the second option, third option. So it depends really on the product, from a simpler bus ticket or an airline ticket to a more complicated domestic holiday, even to more complex a foreign holiday. The whole experience changes, and the touch elements change. And this is how we actually really
wonderful. And customizing the service to the consumer and the product is something which is very, very critical and very, very important.
So you have to tune yourself to the product offering, to the channel offering, and the media offering that you really have.
Absolutely. So as we move, the session is we are just running out of time. As we move to the audience, I would actually request each one of you to take a minute, and if you were to summarize your thoughts on who drives the real business, the marketing, sales, or the customer service, who you would call as the hero?
Rishi, you want to go with that?
Okay. Thank you for passing the hot potato. Well, I think it's, people say it's two sides of a coin, but I would like to further elaborate that it's not just two sides of a coin, but it's two sides of a double-headed coin. So I think both sides have the same combination of customer service, marketing, and sales on it. And everybody who's involved in any sort of people-related business needs to understand that, of course, he needs to do customer service, but you can't dissociate sales and marketing activities from customer service. So, in fact, in the conversation cafe before, we were talking about there was some talk about delivering a product or delivering or educating a person about their product first, and then service comes afterwards. And that's an interesting statement, because actually when you're delivering that product or educating the customer, there's a service interaction going on.
Brilliant. Absolutely.
And also, even before he comes to you for being educated about that product, he must have heard about you through somebody, or somebody must have spoken about you. So the power of that word of mouth publicity, and I think there's a quote here which says it really well: the customer's perception is your reality.
Yes, true.
I really love that quote. I think that's the key to our future, and as any service industry's future. The customer's perception is your reality. You have to acknowledge that and move on from there.
Wonderful. Yes?
Yeah, I think I've said this before. I think for us it is, every individual in the organization, is expected to deliver this, superlative customer experience, whether it's sales, marketing, If the customer is in trouble, we are able to solve that. That person is a hero. If you set the right context of the product that you're trying to sell, that person is a hero. So we have to have heroes all across. if you don't have heroes, there will be some element which will get broken down, and the customer experience will suffer. In the end, the brand suffer and the customer suffers. So for us, every individual is delivering that customer experience.
Wonderful. Yes, guys.
See, as far as my viewpoint is concerned, I think it's extremely contextual in terms of who really drives revenue. I mean, in an under-penetrated industry like insurance, for example, I mean, there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that sales and marketing drives top line, and top line defines valuation. But if I were to look at the flip side of the coin, in the last 2 years, when new business premiums have dried up because of the fact that we are not merely selling financial saving instruments, I would say that the relevance of sales and marketing has actually come in now. So if I were to look at a saturated market, let's look at telecom as an industry. I mean, 5 years ago when I was in telecom, the only person who could become a CEO was either the finance guy or the sales and marketing guy. Today you are seeing a whole host of customer service guys becoming CEOs. Okay, this is absolutely true in more developed, saturated markets like Europe, where service guys lead the organization. They don't want bean counters to be sitting at the top of the helm, because then they will only be doing what in Indian context you call chindi chori. Okay, so you want guys who understand the customer and who actually want to spend in the right direction. Okay, so resource optimization is more important than cost control per se.
Wonderful.
So just a point in terms of, if I were to sum up this entire discussion, I think customer focus plus technology enablement is what actually drives profit and a long-term life cycle for the organization, sustainability.
Great. Thank you so much, each one of you. So over to the audience, I would really invite queries from you, any clarifications, anything that you would like to comment about or just ask. We are at your service. And that's
very contextual.
Yes, very contextual.
I have one question. With 3 guys responsible for customer service, it's obvious that the customer service emerges more like a Higgs boson particle, which gives mass to all the other particles so they can be what they want to be.
Well said.
So I think it's fascinating that we had Rajneesh saying that they are trying to actually remove human interaction completely from customer service and make it more self-service oriented. And Vishy talked about the fact that in that business, human touch is all that really matters. And that's the most important thing to ensure that there are 2 spectrums. We spoke briefly about what really impacts, but we'd like to just elaborate on that, on what kind of businesses. Because I genuinely believe that sometimes as a customer of a bank or for a stolen credit card or something, if I have to call up and keep going through that IVR, it's actually a pain in the neck. And I would like to, that self-service really gets the hell out of, it really bugs the hell out of me. So how do we kind of ensure that we don't lose empathy, or there are a lot of customers who would rather talk to a human voice. I think organizations often, in quest for efficiency, we keep on pushing things to IVRs and to self-service modules. But very often I think a lot of customers do look for human interaction. So how do you respond to that?
So who are you directing your question to?
No, it's actually to the entire panel.
Okay, so I would like to actually quote something from my personal experience just about a couple of days back. I happen to be an MX customer, and I skipped my paying the bill because and it's a gold card, so you have to pay the entire amount. You can't just pay the. And I skipped because I was traveling, and the next statement that landed at my home was having 1,000 rupees plus, because you have to pay all your finance charges and some 992 rupees added on. And I was like not very happy. So I called up the bank, and the lady on the phone very joyfully said, "Sir, have a wonderful day. How can I help you? How can I serve you?" And I just said that, hey, this is where the problem lies, and I completely take ownership of whatever has happened. I have skipped to pay the bill, which was last date of 19th of June, and I'm completely responsible for that. So how can you help me? So she just asked, what do you exactly want? Just let me know, what can I do for you? I said, I really want to pay the entire bill, which is the next bill is, the due date is 19th of July. I want to pay the entire bill now, but can you please waive off my service, this cost that you have added on? And she said, so don't worry, without a hesitation, without even going through that, she just said one thing, don't worry, you are one of our premium customers, and I would certainly waive off, and I will do my best to waive it off, just give me a sec. And she put me on hold, came back again, and something wonderful happened after that. And she said, sir, I have a good news and a bad news. Which one would you like to hear first? And I said, I don't know what you are talking about. Please be specific and talk. Whatever is the fact. She said, sir, first I will give you the good news. And this is completely unusual. It has never happened in my life. A customer service officer talking like this. And she said, sir, the good news is your charges have been waived. So you can pay the balance amount and just let me know. I said, fantastic. So what's the bad news? She said, sir, for doing this, you have to send a box of chocolates to me. I said, come back again. She said, no, don't worry, sir. It's a joke. I said, come on. The customer service person on the other side of the table talking to you as if you are a friend. And I said, now that's a... She said, don't worry, sir. And I also, changed my shoes from being a customer to a friend. I said, I would love to, send you a box of chocolates. Had you been, in Mumbai, because she is based out of Gurgaon, like the complete accent tells you. And my wife was listening to me and she said, what are you talking to Megha? Who is this Megha? And I said, don't worry. She's just, doing the work at the bank. And that's a fun, fantastic consumer experience that you can actually reward your customers with. And of course, that's something which is a lingering thought that you always live with. Because someone in the bank knows you as a person, not just as one of the elements in the database. So that element of friendliness, warmth, actually takes the product, the bank, miles ahead of anybody else.
I think that warmth coupled with the empowerment.
Empowerment,
right?
yeah.
I think the frontline person is empowered and therefore is able to deliver. If that person is not empowered, that decision making, you're taking away, and therefore you're introducing that lag and that completely messes up the experience. I think that empowerment is very important.
Really, really brilliant. Yeah, any other query, please?
I was very, very happy to hear all the wonderful things that you guys are talking about. And I have just a couple of questions. One question and one comment. Question is, if all of this is so perfect, why do consumers still have a lot of problems with you guys? Number one. And my experience is two things. One is that Indian customers are really not that demanding because they don't expect that much. They expect a lot of crap. The second thing is that a lot of companies believe that they're doing a heck of a lot of good for the customer, but they're really not. I can give you just as many bad experiences with American Express and with life insurance companies and with Make My Trip and with hotels, and I can give you many good experiences also. The question is, why are we getting so many bad experiences? And why do people really believe on the other side, meaning you guys, that you're really doing a great job?
Great. Could you please introduce yourself so that we can tailor-make an answer for you?
I'm Gautam Mahajan. I work in the area of customer value management.
For which organization?
Customer Value Foundation.
Wonderful.
Big global.
Wonderful. So your question is to whom?
All of you, because all of you have been saying the same thing.
Okay, so who would like to take the lead?
Wonderful.
No, I think Vishy said this earlier. I don't think we're doing we never said that we're doing the greatest job. No, not at all. I think there is a lot of work still needs to be done, and it's a continuous cycle here. I think the important thing over here, as Vishy said, was that and things will break down. I mean, it's not that it is an imperfect world. At least in our business, where we are intermediary, we're dealing with third suppliers and various kinds of suppliers. There is a constant, I think, tweaking of the processes, of the interactions, and of the service. So we're not saying that, the question really is when trouble happens, when something goes wrong, how do you deal with it? And if the organization is behind and in true sense customer-centric, then look, when that problem happens, we will deal with it and we will try and solve it. I think that's where the promise comes from. We are not saying, at least I'm not saying that we are doing a fantastic job. There is still a lot to be done.
I agree with what you're saying, and I would like to add over here with due respect to all of us, is that nowhere I heard a kind of a promise that, or anybody saying that we are doing our best, we are giving the best service. Yeah. People said that they are giving their best. It is not that they claim themselves to be the best, and there is a difference between the two. The moot point over here is the commitment to serve, and all of us are customers. We are not saying that things won't go wrong. Things will go wrong. The way we are innovating, the way at which the world is moving, the momentum at which things are happening, things are likely to not go exactly as per your plan. And that's where customer service comes in picture. The question over here is, what is our commitment as an organization, as the leaders over here, that we are attending to the customers with the same level of conviction that here we want a happy customer, here we want a delighted customer. And even if we fail, and I'm sure you would have lot many stories about things going wrong, and they are valid, because maybe something did not happen as per your expectations. But the critical point that we need to see is, did that organization or the product that you were wanting to use, did they went a step ahead? Things may not have turned out to your expectations, that's fine. But if an organization, if a company, if a bank, if a travel company has stretched out that hand and tried to make sure that you are happy, I'm sure they are taking that step forward. And still, the journey is on. We are not saying, we are not claiming anywhere that we have reached the destination. It's a journey, and the process is evolving. The customer service will keep on evolving. What Vishy said rightly, it was never there 20 years back, the way customer service occurs to us today. And that's what is the most critical point, that we are constantly evolving.
See, I'd actually like to add a couple of points, especially, Gautam, I completely understand where you're coming from, because, I've never seen an industry advertising that, we will tell you the truth when we sell to you. You've seen the ads on the TV. So,
yeah,
a lot of people call insurance companies a bunch of missellers. To be honest with you, I think there is a 2 or 3-fold impact in terms of why customers complain. Number one, the fact of the matter is that yes, our sales force, like I said, follows the Bofors model of shoot and scoot. So there's a lot that needs to be done in terms of evolving them to make them understand that, hey, yours is not a one-time transaction. Because if you need to sustain a long-term life cycle, you need to sell right. And we've seen that. The guys, our top advisors who sell right, have the largest persistency in the base. Okay, that's number one. Number two, it's about expectation setting at the point of onboarding, which is where this country needs to evolve in terms of explaining to the customer what he's bought into and what his rights are. Okay, so you're absolutely right again. Customers in this country are fatalistic. Okay, hum to Bhagwan ke bharose hai. That's not entirely true. Okay. The third thing is, how do I manage my moments of truth? So, for example, in Sandeep's question, he actually said that, where is the fine line between self-service and the actually, providing a human experience? So, one of the things that we realize as an insurance company is that what are our 2 really critical moments of truth? One is when the customer wants to dissociate himself by surrendering his policy. And 2 is when he wants to register a claim. At both those occasions, we ensure that the person speaks to an agent irrespective of the fact that he comes to an IVR. Because we want to ensure that we give him the right information and help him with the ultimate moment of truth that the product actually promises. So those are 2. If the person comes for a status query, it's fine. A person wanting to switch, for example, a human being may not be able to explain market dynamics on the phone. So a person may still want to do his own self-service in terms of comparing fund performances, etc. But actually providing the human touch at the point of the moment of truth is critical. And that is one of the areas that we focused on. So for example, at some point in time, 2 or 3 years ago, we had just about a 90% plus claims acceptance ratio. Today we are at 98.5, which means we've gone that extra mile to ensure that we make sure that customers are heard, we understand problems and settle claims.
Great. One last question before we close.
Hi, my name is Vikash Kriplani. I'm a partner in a firm called Legion Reality Services. I was just thinking, it kind of deconstructed this whole debate slightly differently. Would you agree that this actually should be more marketing versus sales and customer service rather than marketing and sales versus customer service? And what I mean by that is I think customer service is not only an integral part of the sales process, but rather the backbone of the entire sales process, whereas marketing really sets the expectation in the minds of the customer in terms of what he should expect when he gets into a transaction mode in either buying a product or a service. So what can we as an audience learn from large organizations like yourself, and how you go about setting the right expectations through putting out the right marketing material, so that when the customer actually engages with your company, they're getting the right sales and the right customer service back to them. Yeah.
So can I take this one at least?
Yeah, sure.
Vikash, I think, so let me take the example, Vikash. We recently launched a money back guarantee. for our hotel product, where you actually come online and buy. So when this whole idea of money back guarantee actually kind of let's say crystallizes the organization, various functions, marketing, sales, service, product, all of them actually, we all get together and understand, what does it really mean, and we view all of this as an end-to-end, including setting up, let's say, the last mile of, if you do have an issue with the money back guarantee, if you don't like the hotel that you have taken up, and we will refund the money back to you, no questions asked. The helpline for that, right down to that. So the whole organization actually sits together and makes sure that the customer experience and delivery of the promise is actually met. So it is not a dissociated thing where marketing thinks of some a byline and a TV commercial, and then the rest of the organization doesn't know about it. It is actually a team effort. It is a promise that we make to the customer, and then we make sure that we actually deliver that. So it is not an isolated thing, really. So that's one.
Wonderful.
It is not a sidewise thing.
So to sum up, I can share one thing with you and all of us. What I get from this conversation is that customer service is not just a separate department existing in some corner of the organization. Customer service is a single thread, which is a common thread running through the pearl necklace, which makes different departments, which makes our customers, which makes our employees, which is having marketing, sales, and everybody all put together, including finance, operations, and everybody, the single thread. If that be a customer service attitude, that be the DNA, then we expect a lot of breakthroughs, a lot of transformational work, and we still don't say that the problems won't happen, but the problems will be taken care of. There will be a resolution to those that will leave with the customer delight. And who the customer is not just someone who is paying the money, but he is everyone who you interact with on a day-to-day basis. He is someone who could be your employee. He could be your servant in the society that you work in or at home. He is your spouse. He is your child. And everyone has those expectations. Everyone has certain expectations of that particular situation. If we are looking forward for creating that moment of happiness, moment of delight, and we can create that kind of an attitude of gratitude. And I would just quote to sum up, a line from scriptures which says that service is paramount. Service is paramount, and it goes something like this: das, 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 anudas. What it means is, I want to serve the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of the Lord. So that goes so brilliantly, and it says that our attitude, if it is deeply ingrained into service, then we expect a lot of transformation. Thank you so much for your thoughts, your inspiring insights, and thank you so much for being such a wonderful audience. Thank you.